Let me tell you something today, not from theory, not from fantasy, but from the eternal truth of how God works. Right now, while you sit in uncertainty, while doors seem shut, while silence surrounds your prayers, God is preparing something beyond your imagination. He's not waiting on permission from people. He's not limited by your past or by statistics. He's not looking at the odds. They don't apply to him. You see, God is a God of suddenlies, sudden healing, sudden opportunity, sudden favor. One moment you're in the pit, and the next, he lifts you to the palace. Not because you earned it, not because you fought for it with earthly weapons, but because you held on in faith. You didn't let go when it hurt. You didn't walk away when others gave up. And now, heaven is leaning in your direction. This is not just motivation. This is a spiritual law. What you cannot see with your eyes is already being written in God's invisible ink. He is not ignoring your pain. He is not overlooking your faithfulness. He has been storing your tears, your prayers, your obedience, and he is about to release what you've been praying for in silence. But let me educate your spirit today. God doesn't just show up to impress you. He shows up to transform you. He doesn't give a breakthrough only to bless your situation. He gives it to reposition your calling, to prepare your voice to speak for his glory, to move you into your divine assignment. So stop looking at what's not moving. Stop obsessing over what hasn't changed. Focus on the promise, not the process, because God isn't late. He's setting the stage. And when he moves, it will be so sudden, so complete, so astonishing that even your enemies will say, surely the hand of God was on them. Get ready. God is about to shock you, not with what you asked for, but with something better than what you dared to imagine. Don't just wait, worship, dawn, to just hope, expect, because when heaven says it's time, no force on earth can stop it. Your breakthrough is coming, not by accident, but by divine appointment. Stay ready, stay rooted, stay in the Word, because the next shift in your life, it won't make sense, but it will make history. When we live in constant expectation that something greater is on the horizon, our faith becomes alive in ways that deeply shift how we move through life. Expectancy is not wishful thinking or blind optimism. It is the mature posture of someone who understands the character of God. It is rooted in the deep belief that even when nothing visible is changing, everything in the spiritual realm is being aligned for a purpose greater than our understanding. This kind of faith isn't just about believing in God. It's about believing God, believing his promises, trusting his timing, and expecting his hand to move even when all physical evidence suggests otherwise. When you live with expectancy, you shift from waiting with frustration to waiting with anticipation. You no longer see time as a punishment, but as a preparation. Living in expectation activates faith like no other spiritual discipline. It trains your heart to stay engaged when your flesh wants to give up. It's easy to become numb when delay stretches on. It's easy to disconnect emotionally when disappointment repeats itself. But those who expect, even in the dark, keep the fire of faith burning when others grow cold. Think of a farmer who plants seeds in faith. He doesn't dig up the ground every morning to see if the roots are growing. He waters the soil, he protects the field, and he waits because he knows what he planted. Similarly, when you live in expectation, you're not desperate for proof every day. You trust that what was planted in prayer will bloom in God's perfect timing. There is a principle woven through Scripture, the rig. Just live by faith, not by sight. But faith is not passive. It's not sitting idle, hoping things will change. Faith is active. It praises when there's no progress. It prepares for the rain while Now, this isn't to say you won't have doubts. Even the greatest men and women of God had moments of weakness. But what kept them anchored was their unwavering expectation that God would not abandon his word. Abraham waited decades for the promise of a son, but he continued to believe. Hannah cried year after year at the temple before she saw Samuel. Joseph sat in prison before the dream in his heart became reality. Their expectation activated their endurance. They weren't driven by emotion. They were driven by revelation. And when you walk by revelation, not by how you feel, you become unshakable. One of the greatest mistakes believers make is confusing inactivity with God's absence. Just because you can't see Him working doesn't mean He's not. Often God does His deepest work in silence. He's developing your character, stretching your capacity, and maturing your mindset to be able to carry the breakthrough you've been praying for. Expectancy helps you interpret silence as preparation, not punishment. It keeps you spiritually awake. It keeps your ears tuned to His whisper, and it prepares your heart to receive when the blessing arrives, because no one receives what they're not ready for. Expectancy also transforms how you handle resistance. When you know something good is coming, the attacks lose their sting. The obstacles no longer look like barriers. They look like tests to qualify you. You stop panicking and start praising. You don't let detours distract you. You become laser focused, grounded in the truth that what God started, He will finish. That's not hype. That's the reality of a life lived in alignment with His Word. So today, decide to raise your expectation. Don't let past disappointments lower your faith. Don't let fear shrink your vision. Expect healing. Expect restoration. Expect open doors. Expect favor. Expect divine surprises. Not because you are in tit led, but because God is faithful. He honors expectation. He responds to faith. And when your expectation aligns with His purpose, breakthrough is not just possible, it's inevitable. God specializes in the unexpected. Time and time again throughout history, we see that His methods defy our logic, His timing defies our control, and His purpose defies human understanding. But one thing is certain, He moves in ways that bring transformation to people and situations that seem beyond repair. This is the beauty of God's power. He doesn't need everything to line up perfectly in the natural. He doesn't need everything to make sense according to the world's standards. All He needs is a willing heart, a surrendered life, and the belief that He can take the impossible and make it possible. When God shows up, He doesn't just work within the boundaries we've set for our lives. He shatters them and creates new paths. We tend to box God in, giving Him a set of expectations based on what we think is possible, what we think is achievable. But God in His sovereignty has plans that exceed our wildest dreams and surpass our limited understanding. He's not just waiting for a door to open. He's preparing a way through the walls we thought would never come down. When everything seems locked, when nothing is moving in the natural, that's when God is at work behind the scenes, aligning the right people, opening the right doors, and shifting the atmosphere in your favor. Often, He allows us to go through seasons of waiting and uncertainty because He's teaching us how to trust when we can't see the end result. He's cultivating our patience, strengthening our perseverance, and deepening our faith. We are conditioned by the world to expect things to happen immediately, to receive answers quickly. But God works in His own timing, which is often contrary to our expectations. What seems like a delay, He is often God's perfect timing in action. While we are waiting, He's arranging divine encounters, preparing us for the next level of breakthrough, and setting the stage for something greater than we. Moments, the closed doors, the unanticipated challenges are all part of the divine setup for the breakthrough that is on its way. God is not limited by the confines of time, and He is not constrained by the natural laws that govern our world. In the Bible, we see countless examples of God doing the unthinkable. He parted the Red Sea when there was no way out. He provided manna in the wilderness when there was no food. He raised the dead, healed the sick, and caused the blind to see, all when it seemed impossible. These miracles didn't happen within human understanding. They happened in the realm of the supernatural, where God's power transcends everything we know. He's the God who works in the realm of the impossible, who makes a way when there seems to be no way. And the same God who performed these mighty acts thousands of years ago is still the God of the unexpected today. When we trust in God's ability to move in unexpected ways, we start to see life through a different lens. We stop living in the constraints of human possibility and start believing that with God, all things are possible. The world may tell you that something can't happen, that you're too far gone, or that your situation is too complicated, but God specializes in situations that seem hopeless. He specializes in turning things around when everything seems lost. This is not just theoretical. It's a reality that countless believers have experienced throughout history. God's track record of doing the unexpected is flawless. The next time you find yourself facing a challenge or waiting on God to move, remember this: the very nature of God is to do the unexpected. He is always working behind the scenes, preparing a way where there seems to be no way. And when He shows up, His presence changes everything. He doesn't just give us small solutions. He gives us breakthroughs that leave us in awe of His goodness. His way is always better than ours. So when things don't make sense, when the road ahead seems unclear, keep your eyes on the one who is faithful to move when you least expect it. God is working on your behalf, even in the moments you can't see it. He's doing what only He can do, and in His time, He will reveal His glory in a way that will leave you speechless. Keep trusting, keep waiting, because God specializes in the unexpected, and your miracle is coming when you least expect it. Just when circumstances seem unchangeable, God demonstrates His power by moving in ways no one predicted. It's often when we've exhausted our own strength, tried every possible route, and run out of logical options that God steps in, not just to rescue us, but to reveal His glory in the situation. Human beings tend to look at what's visible. We assess what we can see, measure, and control. But God operates beyond the realm of logic and prediction. He is not bound by natural processes or worldly systems. When we think something is final, God sees it as the beginning of a new chapter. When we declare a situation dead, He prepares a resurrection. This is what makes faith so essential. It invites us to believe beyond what we see and trust that God's intervention is never random, never accidental, but always filled with divine purpose. When life feels like it's not moving, when the situation is stuck, it's easy to fall into hopelessness. The mind begins to create assumptions. This is how it's always going to be. Nothing will ever change. But God's record tells a different story. In Scripture, again and again, He showed up in moments that seemed sealed off by impossibility. The widow of Zarephath had only a handful of flour and a little oil, just enough for one final meal for her and her son. Yet God turned that limited supply into an unlimited provision during a time of famine. Why? Us where we see a wall, God sees a window. He doesn't operate on our timelines or within our budgets. He uses impossible circumstances as the stage for His power. It's in the unchanged